that looks like a fun trip, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you something. This trip kind of sucked. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. So just like I did in my last video, I thought I would cover my route in this trip and talk a little bit about the details about where I went and whatnot, in case someone wants to do a similar trip and they want to kind of find out exactly where I went. I think this route that I picked would be a good route for anyone who's never been to the United States before and you like to explore the western part of the United States. I think this would be a great route for someone to do in a car, a motorcycle or a car or RV or anything like that. So I think this would be kind of a fun route. I've got my notes right here. That's why I keep looking down to the side here. Let me start off by saying that this trip, let me go backtrack a little bit. So some of you hippie motorcyclists not going to like this, but I am a planner. I love to plan trips, and these trips that I go on, they start from the moment I decide where I'm gonna go. And for me, this trip was Moab. I wanted to go ride in Moab. So I was like, look on the map. Okay, there's Moab. How am I gonna get there? What is a fun loop that I could do to go to Moab and come back home? That's where the idea came from. So once I have the destination in mind, then I start to plan the route and all that. And to me, that's when the trip starts. I love the planning aspect. I do all this research and figure out like where I'm looking at a couple of things. I'm looking at like what would be some fun motorcycle roads, what would be some scenic things that I could see, what would be some fun activities I could do along the way, and also what would make an interesting video for you guys to watch. So those are the three criteria that I kind of think about when I'm planning the route. So for me, the trip starts when I make that decision. I start to plan. That's really fun. I love that part. And then I go on. And to be honest, many times once the trip is planned, once the route's all planned out, I'm like, my excitement towards the actual trip kind of dips a bit. Because in my mind, I've already gone on the trip. I've already planned it. I've already gone on the trip. I'm like, now it's just almost a formality to actually go. But then I go on the trip, and then when I come back and I edit the video and I post it online, to me, that's when the trip is done. When I post the video online, that's when the trip is done. And then I just let the YouTube algorithm do whatever the hell it wants to do. I don't really care about that. But to me, that's when the trip is done, and that's when I start planning the next trip. So why did I tell you that? Was because it's very rare for me that things go wrong on my trips, my holidays, because I'm such a planner. Like I plan everything out. So it's very rare that things go wrong. So this trip was a bit of a surprise because a lot of things went wrong. And a lot of things went wrong because of my bad planning. So that's really frustrating when you're like, you think you're a really great planner and then you're making and then you realize you made all these mistakes and you're like, crap, the only one to blame is yourself. So I'll explain all that kind of in the beginning of this video here about what went wrong and what I would do differently. So let's start off with Pacific Northwest. In this series, if you've seen the video series on YouTube, you've seen I've broken it down into six geographical areas. And I did that because unlike my Canadian trip where every single day I was in a different area, this particular trip I was going to spend like 2 or 3 days in certain areas. So I wanted to kind of, I knew it would be too long to release it in one long video because I think the long one is like almost an hour. And I don't know, if some of you watched the whole thing, I mean, congrats. I don't think I've even watched the whole thing. But I knew I wanted to release it in like 6 parts so that if someone wanted to watch just Moab or just this area, they could do all that. Disembarking from the ferry, I begin my American road trip at the entrance to the Olympic National Park. Covering nearly 1 million acres, the park encompasses 3 distinct ecosystems: glaciated mountains, rugged coastline, and lush temperate forests that the Pacific Northwest is well known for. Wow, look at that. That's amazing. Look at that. So let's start with the Pacific Northwest. Now, here's the thing is that on my last road trip around Canada, one of the things I was quite disappointed about was the amount of traffic that I encountered on the road. And I mean, understandable. It was like, when did I go on that trip? Maybe June or something like that. I always try to avoid July and August because it's the summer months, but even the tail end of that's always busy. All these like retirees in their RVs, clogging up the road and whatnot. But I was disappointed with how much traffic I encountered because to me, the reason why I go on these motorcycle trips is I want to get away from everybody. I want to be on the road and there's nobody around me at all, right? That's what I love. I love to ride in an area where it's just literally in the middle of BFN. if you know what that stands for. That's where I want to go. So this particular trip, this USA one, I tried to plan a route that I thought would take me off the main highway and away from traffic as much as possible. So heading down the Pacific Northwest, I take the Coho Ferry across to Port Angeles, and instead of taking the I-5 down on the coast, I move over onto the coastal highway, the coastal highway there, and boom, immediately I encounter traffic. So that was a little bit unexpected. I didn't think it'd be that busy. I mean, I left, I think, like on a Tuesday afternoon or something like that. So I was kind of surprised how busy the traffic was. But the scenery, I can understand why, because the scenery down the west coast of Washington and Oregon, especially Oregon, is absolutely outstanding. Look at the ocean. Oh man, that ever look awesome. Holy crap. Look at that. Here's another thing that kind of went awry early on, is that when I went on my Canadian trip, there were some comments that I read that were critical of the fact that I didn't spend much time in the cities that I was stopping in. And I explained that in my last commentary video. I said, well, to me, these cities are not interesting. They're just, you know, little hick towns in the middle of BC, and I have no interest in these places at all. And I just really enjoy riding my motorcycle. Honestly, if I didn't have to sleep and eat, I would just ride my motorcycle the whole time. I just love I love being on my motorcycle. It's just an inconvenient fact that I have to stop and sleep and eat somewhere, you know? So I just like riding my motorbike. So when I plan these routes, I'm like, okay, this is a fun road and this is a fun road, and I might have to sleep somewhere in the middle. So these towns that I stop in, they're not really, to me, they're not really that interesting. So it's just a temporary stop to get back on my motorcycle. But one of the criticisms that, you know, people say, well, we've never been in that area, so we might want to see what that area is like. So I can understand that. So on this particular trip, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop a lot, and I'm gonna try to film as much as I can to try to capture the ambience of each of the areas that I ride through. So Pacific Northwest, I stop along the beach. How cool is this? You can ride right onto the beach. So awesome. And my plan was to stop in like all little fishing villages and whatnot, the kind of tourist towns along the way and whatnot. So after the beach, my first stop was the Tillamook Cheese Factory. And I get to the Tillamook Cheese Factory because I thought, yeah, Tillamook Cheese Factory, you know, you can go in, you can see how cheese is made. All you French viewers will just love that. Oh, look at the cheese. But I was like, yeah, it'd be kind of fun. They sell ice cream and grilled cheese sandwiches there, and my favorite is grilled cheese sandwiches. I mean, I love grilled cheese sandwiches. So I was like, yeah, I can stop, get a grilled cheese sandwich, get some ice cream, you know, that'd be kind of fun. I get to the parking lot there, and I look at the time, and I quickly realize that I made a huge mistake. And what happened was, when I was planning this trip, all the hotels along the West Coast were really expensive. I was shocked at how expensive these hotels were, like $300 or $400 for some, you know, roadside motel in the off season. I was really shocked at that. And you know, this road trip was like 21 days, and I don't camp, so I always stay in hotels. So I'm like, I'm not spending $400 a day for 21 days. That's insane. I could buy a whole new motorcycle for that, right? So I was really surprised at how expensive the hotels were. So for the first week or so that I was on the West Coast, I stayed mostly in Airbnbs. And I am not a huge fan of Airbnb. I think Airbnb, the value proposition, the benefit of Airbnb versus a hotel has really diminished a lot since they launched. In the early days, I stayed in a lot of Airbnbs. When I went to Europe, I stayed in a lot of Airbnbs. It was fantastic. I thought it was a much better deal than a hotel. Now, I don't see that value is there anymore. And I'm sure some of you are probably, you know, feeling the same thing. One, the price is almost as high as a hotel. When you actually look at the price, you see all the extra fees that the landlord and Airbnb are trying to add on. They add on these cleaning fees. Then you give you this big list of things that they want you to clean. Isn't that what the cleaning fee is for? You know? the Airbnb experience is really diminished a lot. So, but every now and then you can find a deal that's cheaper than staying in a hotel, especially when the hotels are like $300 or $400 a night. So I was staying in Airbnb there, and when I got to the Tillamook Mall, I realized like I was really late in the day. It was a lot later in the day than I thought. And I still had like about 200 kilometers to go that day. And I realized like if I went into this cheese factory and filmed there for an hour and then kept going, I would arrive at this Airbnb like pretty late at night, like maybe 9 to 10 o'clock at night. And, you know, I mean, I messaged them and I said, hey, I'm going to be a bit late. And they're like totally fine about it. But I just don't feel comfortable coming to someone's house at like 9, 10 o'clock at night. I think that's a little bit rude and disrespectful to show up at someone's house that late at night, right? It's someone's house you're staying in. So you should try to be respectful of their hours, right? So I was like, crap. So I forgot that, you know, I didn't film the Tillamook thing. I hopped on my bike, hopped on the highway and had to haul ass down to my Airbnb. And when I got to my Airbnb, I couldn't figure out like why the hell where did the day go? Like why was I so late there? Because I like to typically get into the hotel or wherever I'm staying at around like 4 or 5 o'clock. Because every night I have a lot to do before I go to sleep. Because, you know, obviously I film, I got 8 cameras that I take with me. And so I need to back up all the footage that night. Onto my drive, and you know I've got like one SD card slot on this camera, so it's not like I can back up all 8 cameras at once, right? I need to back up like one at a time. Each camera can be anywhere from like 20 to 30 gigabytes of data, so it takes a long time to back up. I back it up onto this guy right here, and once everything is backed up onto this guy, what I do is then make a backup of this onto this guy right here, another drive. So I back it up onto this drive. And that way I have 2, because you know what would happen if I was in the middle of my trip somewhere and I either lost this thing or it got corrupted or something happened to it, then all the filming that I've done up until then will be gone. So here's a tip for you guys: if you're filming a road trip, always make sure you got 2, a minimum 2, preferably 3, but I don't want to carry 3 hard drives, but ideally 2 backups of all your data. And trust me, you will be thankful for that one day, because these things do get corrupted. Don't leave it on your card. Some people leave it on their memory card. They go, I got a 256 gigabyte memory card. It's large. I'll just leave it on there. I made that mistake once in Europe, and I lost like weeks of. It was actually photos at the time. I wasn't filming. I was just doing photos, but weeks of photos just were all corrupted. It was all gone, right? So always make sure you got 2 backups of all your stuff. But anyway, so yeah, I back everything up. I charge all the batteries, make sure everything's all charged up. And then I cross the fingers that I've done everything and hit format and reformat all the memory cards. Because when you reformat it, it erases everything, right? So I have to like quadruple check to make sure I've backed everything up before I hit format. And then I make sure I charge everything. I usually try to grab some dinner, catch up on some work, try to think about what I'm going to film the next day, and then hit the sack. So it takes quite a while. So if I get into my hotel too late at night, then I'm too tired, or I want to go to sleep or whatever, and I don't get everything done. So ideally I like to get in like around 4 or 5 o'clock. That allows me 3 or 4 hours to like get everything finished, grab some dinner, hit the sack, and then get ready for the next day. I didn't get into my Airbnb that day till like almost 9 o'clock, and I realized when I looked at the map afterwards, I was like, oh my God, the first like 4 days of this trip, each day was about over a 500 mile day. It was about 738 kilometers or something like that, whatever that translates to freedom miles. I don't know what it is. But I was like, holy shit, like every single day was like 500 miles. And let me tell you something, trying to do 500 miles on the slow ass donkey, that is extremely frustrating. So I realized like, oh crap, like if I'm going to stop and film and capture the ambience of each place and try to do 500 miles and try to get into my hotel at a decent time, I'm in big trouble, because I didn't think about how long the distances were, and that means I got to wake up super early in the morning each day. So that was a bit disappointing. So I ended up having to skip a lot of stuff that I wanted to film just because I didn't want to get in super late. And what happened was that because I got into that Airbnb so late, I actually forgot to charge my batteries on my cameras. I backed everything up. I grabbed some food, I went to sleep. I forgot to charge everything. And that kind of screwed me over the next day, because the next day I was riding to the Alvord Desert. And the Alvord Desert is really interesting because you look at the Alvord Desert and you're like, that's in Oregon? I don't know about you, but when I think of Oregon, I think of green, rain, forest, coastal weather and all that, right? So that's what I think of Oregon. So I was really surprised that when I ended up at the Alvord Desert, I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's in Oregon. And the thing is, like I said earlier, I wanted to film each episode, each region as its own episode. So when I was kind of planning this trip, I was looking online as to where would I end that Pacific Northwest section. And I knew that I knew I kind of wanted to. I was going from west to east, right? So I knew I'd have to cross over the Cascades. I thought, well, maybe the mountain would be kind of great. I go over the Cascade Mountains, and maybe that could be great. But then I kept going, and I found that place called the Alvord Desert, and it says dry lake bed in the middle of Oregon. Well, not middle, I guess, like the eastern part of Oregon. And I thought, yeah, that'd be great. I had all these ideas in my head for shots. I was like, yeah, I could get the drone out and get shots of me going like this and the drone going like this and flying around. And I thought yeah, I could do like a time lapse and put my bike there and get a time lapse of all the stars and all that. I thought, yeah, that'd be a great ending to that. So I head down there, and what happened was I got to that area and I got kind of lost actually, because I checked into my Airbnb there. And if you look on this map, like this whole white area is what I thought is like the Alvord Desert, like the playa, right? That's what I thought that whole thing was. So I was like, well, okay, I could just ride straight in there and then go see it. But I went down this gravel road, and it didn't. The terrain around me didn't seem to be turning into like this flat, dry lake bed. And I was like, that's what's going on here. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just go north. I look on the map once again, and it just looks like it's north. So I'm like, okay, well, it can't be that far. So I'll just go north. And then it got really deep with sand. My bike got stuck. It fell over. I had to dig it out and all this kind of stuff. So I finally said, screw it. I'm going to go back to the main road. When I got back on the main road, there was a ranger there, and I asked him, I said, hey, how do I get to this playa area? And he goes, oh, you got to go down here, and there'll be like a little dirt road that heads down there, and it's by this area called Frogs Hot Springs or something like that. So okay, so I head down there. What he didn't tell me was that road to go down to the turnoff was 15 kilometers of crazy gravel washboard. This bike is just not set up for this washboard at all. Oh, look at this thing. Oh my God. Oh. I've never ridden washboard before. I don't know how you ride washboard. I don't know if you just give it the beans and just skip along the top, or you kind of bounce your way through or whatever. So I didn't really know what to do, but I was really surprised at how difficult it was. I mean, the whole bike was just shaking like this. You see in the video, my camera mount actually breaks. Whoa. Holy shit! That broke that thing right off. So I just kind of bounced my way down there. It took a long time to actually get there, actually. And interestingly, as kind of a side note, for some of you who follow me on Instagram, you know that I have a new bike, the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro with a 21-inch front wheel. And the CB500X has a 17-inch front wheel. Now, I don't know if that makes a huge difference in riding washboard or not, or suspension or whatever, but I've been really shocked at how many times I've ridden the Tiger on bumpy roads like that washboard road, and it's been smooth. It's been no big deal. I was quite surprised at that. Whereas the donkey, I mean, literally, I thought the donkey was going to get shaken apart on that road. So I just took it slow. I'm just literally bouncing up and down this road. It took a long time to get to the playa. And so once I got down there, my original plan was I was going to get down there, I was going to scope it out, see where the sun is, see where the mountains are, kind of plan some shots, go back to my Airbnb, rest up a bit, charge everything up, and then come back later, closer to the evening, because I wanted to get the night time lapse and all that. That was my original plan. But after I got down there, I was like, F that. I am not taking that gravel road again. Funny thing is, I met 2 other riders down there who were on KLRs. And I was like, how'd you guys find that gravel road? And they're like, screw that. I don't know if it's worth it or not. Because that gravel road was pretty brutal. Even on the KLR, it was pretty brutal. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to come back on that again. I'll just film what I can while I'm here. And I've got, 40% battery because none of it was charged. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just, I'll try to think about what shots I need and try to be efficient with battery life that I got left.
Well, I have that. Maybe that.
Now, an experienced filmmaker would be really smart with their planning, right? Because they only got 40% battery left. And so once your battery's dead, that's it, right? You technically run out of film, right? So, you're got to be really careful with how you're going to plan. An inexperienced camera guy like me, what do I do? So what I did was, where is it? This thing here. This is the Insta360 camera. If you're a motorcycle vlogger, traveler, whatever, you film, I do recommend getting this camera because this camera is surprisingly versatile. In fact, if you only wanted to buy one camera, I would recommend buying this. I've seen people mount this to the helmet. It's a bit awkward because it's kind of big or whatnot, but this allows you to get an infinite number of shots without having to kind of plan out your shot because you do everything in post-production, right? So if you're thinking about buying a camera to record your trips, get this, get a selfie stick, you'll be good to go. But okay, so what happened with this? The thing with this is, and all these cameras is, they have this light on them that comes on when the camera turns on, and when it's recording it has like a red light like this. A red light comes on. But the thing is, so it lets you know that it's recording. But what I did was I turned off that red light. I turned off this LED light actually. In fact, I did that for all my cameras. I turned off the lights, I turned off the wireless, I turned off voice command because I want to try to save battery as much as possible. So I turned everything off. So I didn't realize that when I pulled this thing out of my bag, out of the back of my bike there, it was actually already on. So you can see here it's on. I don't know that because like these lights aren't on, so I can't, once the lights are on, I can't tell if it's on or not. So I put it in the case like this, and I put it back in the top case of my bike, and I'm riding around trying to find an area to film. So I find the area I want to film, I pull it out, I attach it to the selfie stick, I'm screwing it onto the bike, I extend the selfie stick, and I reach up, and I think I'm turning it on, but I'm actually turning it off. You get it? So then I get on my bike, I ride around thinking, oh yeah, man, I'm getting some good footage here. And meanwhile, the camera's not even on. I'm literally riding around thinking I'm filming myself and the camera's not even on. Now here's the thing, as I said earlier, I back everything up at night, right? I back everything up onto the drive at night. I don't actually check the footage in the evening because, once again, it takes a long time to back all this stuff up. I mean, I have almost 1,500 clips on this USA trip. I'm not going to go through all 1,500 clips, each day could be like a couple hundred clips. I'm not going to go through check all that, right? I do that when I get home. When I start to edit, I do that when I get home. So on the road, I just back everything up, make sure everything's all backed up, and then that's it. So I don't actually review everything. So I didn't notice until I got back home here and I started to edit it. Hey, what's going on here? Where are all the clips from this thing? And then I looked at it closely. I'm like, oh, wonderful. I was actually turning the camera off instead of turning it on. So the thing with the Playas, all my great ideas that I had to film this really epic footage, well, turned to shit because one, I didn't charge my battery, so I didn't have enough battery life. I got like one shot from my GoPro, then my GoPro died. This thing, I thought I had it on and it was off. And then even worse is this thing here. I'm going to do a separate video on all my camera equipment because I've updated it since the last time I did that video. And I forgot to mention this drone in that video, but I will say this. This is the Skydio S1, I think it's called, or S2 or something like that. I think they have like S2 Plus or whatever it is now, but Skydio drone. This drone sucks for motorcycle videography. It's Total garbage. And I won't go into too much detail why right now, because I will cover in more detail my like when I do the gear review video. But just to quickly, in case you're thinking about buying this drone, if you're thinking about buying this drone, you want to know why I hate it so much, just email me and I'll tell you. But just really quickly is that this drone is advertised as a drone that's really good at obstacle avoidance. Great. If you're skiing through some trees or snowboarding or, you know, whatever around a lot of obstacles, fantastic, wonderful. On a motorcycle road trip, when are you generally going to use this drone for? Think about like when are you going to use this drone for? Most of the time you're using the drone to get a wide angle rear 3/4 shot, right? Like if you're on the bike here, you want the drone way back here, so it's got this wide angle kind of establishing shot of where you are. You want to see the scenery all around you, right? That's kind of ideally what you want the drone for. Occasionally you might want the drone kind of close to you, maybe zooming around you, whatever. Maybe you're on some kind of like single track and you want to make sure the drone is avoiding trees and whatnot. But even then, primarily you want the drone to be, you know, far back and high up to capture the scenery around you, right? Unfortunately, the engineers at Skydio have no idea what cinematography is because they have programmed this thing not to be way behind you. If you're on your bike here and the drone's back here, what the drone does is goes zit. It goes like right above you and looks down at you like this. This is how the drone loves to fly. It basically likes to look straight down at you and cover you and the 5 feet around you. Really, I'll show you what I mean. Like I can show you this, and I'll show this in more detail when I do my gear review. But this thing is extremely frustrating because why the hell do I care if this thing can avoid obstacles when it's flying like this? There are no obstacles up there. I don't care. What I want is for it to stay there and quit zooming in and coming close to me. Now Skydio engineers might say, yeah, but we can't track you that far away. And that's really true. The tracking on this thing is only about 100 feet. If you're lucky, it's 100 feet. You're more like 50 feet, and even then it's not good. It loses you a lot. Like in this shot here, I am the only dark object moving on an otherwise plain background. You wouldn't think that would be difficult to track me, but nope, it can't. It just loses you. So this thing here, no matter how far you put it back, you can put it back as far as you want. In fact, they even released a software update to address this. They even say like the drone's gonna, check the horizon and show more of the horizon and whatnot. I'm like, great, got all excited. Doesn't work. So yeah, you can put this thing as far back as you want, 100 feet back, 100 feet up in the air. You look at it on the phone. Yeah, it looks really good. As soon as you start moving, this thing's gonna zoom in and then just basically look straight down at you and follow you like this. Super annoying. So if you're thinking about buying a drone, I'll do a video where I think like which drone is best for motorcyclists because this thing is expensive, and depending on the type of shots that you want to get and the type of riding you want to get, this may or may not be a good drone for you. But this drone I think has a very, very narrow specific function. And if you're shooting that, it's great. Everything else, it's a waste of money, and it's a pretty expensive drone. So anyways, so yeah, I didn't get hardly any good footage of the playa with the drone. I'm an idiot, and I had my camera turned off when I thought I had it on. I don't have any battery on the GoPro. So my epic, action-packed drone, playa footage, dry lake bed footage scene just ended up being so stupid of me just riding around. And the thing is, I'm not that experienced a rider, so I was like, I really wanted to get shots of me like drifting the bike and get the tail out, and I wanted to do donuts and shoot this from the donuts and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not that good of a rider, so I'm just like literally me riding around with this thing on, and the few times I was actually recording, just trying to lean my bike a little bit like that, just going in this big ass circle. So that was the kind of a disappointing conclusion to my ride through the Pacific Northwest.
The Alvord Desert is the largest playa lake in Oregon, receiving just 7 inches of rain a year. The surface of the lake is as flat as a pancake and as dry as a piece of toast. These conditions make it ideal for blasting around on a bike or even in a car. In fact, there's been a few land speed records that have been set here.
So one of the things I mentioned at the top of this video is that I really wanted to try to get away from traffic on this trip. I love being in the middle of nowhere on my motorcycle, no one around me at all. I feel like an explorer. I feel like I'm exploring new areas when there's like no one around me. So that's why I titled the trip like Seeking Solitude. Like I want to get away from everybody. And so when I was planning this trip, I knew I had to go from Oregon to Utah, Moab, right? How am I going to get there? I was looking on Google Maps to see like what options are available, and I came across this road, Highway 50 in America. And when I looked it up, it turned out that this highway was named the loneliest highway in America by Life magazine.
Highway 50 officially starts in Carson City, Nevada, and runs all the way to the Great Basin National Park.
And I thought, hey, that's great. What a better road for someone who wants to get away from everybody than the loneliest highway in America. Sounds fantastic. Now, when I went on Google Maps, I kind of dragged the little guy out to get the street view. This road doesn't look very exciting for a motorcyclist. It's pretty straight and not a lot of variety in terms of terrain or road or anything like that. But I thought, once again, like kind of the three criteria that I look for, one of them, which is the narrative for this video, I thought, well, if I'm trying to, make this video where I'm seeking solitude and trying to get away from everybody, what better road than the loneliest highway in America, right? I have to ride that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to ride the loneliest highway. I didn't do the whole thing. I came in at Austin, which is about halfway, and I rode to the border from there. But my goal for that was like, okay, I thought, well, this is not going to be a very interesting motorcycle video because it's just basically straight. But when I read that it was, part of it was like the history, associated with the history of the Pony Express, that got me really excited because I love history. I love American history, that whole cowboy frontier era. I just think it's great. I would love to like live in that era where you could ride around on horses and wrangle cattle and whatever else cowboys do. I'm a total city person, so I'd probably be dead, in a week or whatever, but I just love the romantic view of that era. So when I found out it was like part of the Pony Express, I was like, that's great. And I thought, well, maybe I could try to focus on the historic angle and talk a little bit about the history of the Pony Express and the loneliest highway in America.
The history of the loneliest highway in America has its origins in the inception of the iconic Pony Express. The Pony Express was a horse-mounted mail service that operated between St. Joseph, Missouri and Sacramento, California. It was created as a direct result of the 1849 gold rush that saw thousands of prospectors move across the country in search of a better life.
And so one of the things I wanted to do was kind of stop along the way to kind of let you, the audience, know that, hey, if you want to do the same trip, these are these stops along the way. So when I saw that there's this train yard in Ely, and they offered a train ride on a steam locomotive, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, that sounds fantastic. Cowboy era steam locomotive, that'd be great. Who doesn't love steam engines? They are just mechanical wonders, those things. I absolutely love steam engines. So I was like, great. And then I looked on their website and they said that for an extra fee, you could ride up in the cab with the engineers. And I was like, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Blow the whistle, get the steam, shovel the coal, and do all that. I thought that would be great. Now, it wasn't cheap to ride in the cab. I think the base ticket was like $35 or something like that. It was $150 to ride in the cab. That's not crazy expensive, but it's a bit of money, especially it's US and I live in Canada. So it's almost $200 Canadian just to ride in a train. But I was like, okay, well, once in a lifetime, when else am I going to ride in a train? I'm gonna do it. So this is where my trip just once again started to go to hell. Is that I'm all excited to film this. I get to the train yard and first thing they tell me is that the steam engine is under maintenance. Interestingly, that wasn't mentioned on the website. After I paid, they're like, oh, by the way, the steam engine's not working. We have a diesel electric instead. Now, all trains are cool, but a diesel electric is not as cool as a steam engine, right? Come on, a steam engine is cool. A diesel electric is okay and it's cool in a different way, but I wanted the steam engine. So I was a little bit disappointed that they said, yeah, you can still ride in there, but it's a diesel electric, And I mean, it's kind of a cool train, but it's not a steam engine. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. And then I found out that there was a bike race going on that day. And this bike race is everybody gets on the train with their bikes. The train takes them to the top of the mountain, unloads everybody, and then everybody races the train back down. It's kind of a local mountain bike event that they have going on there. I was like, okay, well, that's great. But talking to engineers, they said this bike race will add about an hour on either end of this train ride. So about an hour extra to like load everybody up, and then an hour extra at the top of the mountain to unload everybody. So the whole trip's going to be extended by, a couple hours. The problem with that was that I had also booked a tour with the Lehman Caves a few hours after my train ride. So I realized if I take this train ride, I will miss my time slot in the tour of the Lehman Caves. And that tour is surprisingly busy. I was really shocked on their website when I went to book it. Like the big main, the Grand Tour, I think it's called, is booked up quite quickly. So I was like, well, I don't want to miss that because I'm not coming back to this area. And, I didn't think it was that exciting to ride an electric train. So I ended up just saying, forget it. And I didn't even ride on the train because I would miss the Lehman Tour. So I just walked around the yard. It's kind of interesting talking to the engineer a little bit and kind of seeing some of the steam engines up close. And then I left and I booked it over to the Lehman Caves. So once again, another disappointment in this trip. That's something that I was planned for and was really excited about, didn't really come through.
My last stop on the Loneliest Highway takes me deep underground into the Lehman Caves. Discovered in 1885 by Absalom Lehman, a local rancher and miner, the caves extend about a quarter of a mile under the Great Basin National Park.
But the Lehman Caves were actually pretty interesting. The tour guide that we had, she was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I love it when tour guides are really passionate about what they're touring. A lot of these tour guides, it's just a summer job for them. They just memorize a script. They don't really have any interest in what they're saying or whatever. But this tour guide that we had there, she was absolutely fantastic, super knowledgeable, really enthusiastic. And I mean, if you're claustrophobic, you might not want to take this tour, but to me, it's just really fascinating that this entire cave structure, what do you call those people that explore caves? Spelunking or whatever it is? Like, I remember as a kid, I used to always go hiking up in the woods or whatever, and I always found it kind of fun to go into caves. I used to find holes in caves in the woods, and I would just go right in there. I remember I got in trouble once from some adults because they said, like, you shouldn't just wander into any cave because it could be a bear cave or some animal could be hibernating in there. And I'm like, little kid, I don't know. I'm just like, okay, let's go in there. So I used to do that a lot. So I was really excited to go in this cave and this underground area is just fantastic. It's surprising to think how big this area is underground. We can't even see it and all that. It's even amazing to me when she told me this used to be a speakeasy. Like I said in the video, I can't imagine going in that cave in the 1920s or 30s or whenever Prohibition was, with your little oil lamp or whatever and your bottle of moonshine, getting hammered down there and trying to walk your way back out because we had lights. They had lights built in. They had staircases and all that. But back then, these guys would have just been literally stumbling around in the dark. So I was quite surprised to hear that. But if you have an interest in geology and cave thingy-majiggers, I highly recommend the Lehman Caves because it was really interesting to hear about the history of how that whole area is formed. It was discovered by a local farmer. Like, can you imagine finding that? You're just out with your cattle one day and you're like, hey, look at this little hole in the ground. And you go in, you see this massive structure in there. It's really, really cool. So I was disappointed that I didn't get a chance to ride on the steam engine. It's still on my bucket list. If anyone owns a steam engine and you can give me a ride, just let me know because I'll motorcycle all the way out there. I don't care where you are. Just if I could ride a steam engine, it'd be great. But yeah, I was really disappointed to get to ride on the steam engine. I was disappointed that they charged me $150 to, and that didn't tell me afterwards until it was after that it was the steam one. It was the electric one. But the Lehman Caves were really interesting and I enjoyed that. So I hope that section of the video was interesting for the audience to make them want to do that trip again. Because if you're interested in American history, I think that whole route could be actually very interesting because there's a lot of historical points of interest along the way. I just did a very small section of it. So if you have an interest in American history and you're I'd probably much better do in a car because you can just blast down the highway, the air conditioning on and all that. But to me personally, I found that area extremely interesting.
Despite Life magazine's claim, I found Highway 50 to be really interesting. It has numerous points of interest and provides a fascinating look into an important part of American history. There's actually a lot more to see and do on the highway than what I've shown in this video, and I encourage you to grab a copy of the official survival guide and discover the loneliest road in America for yourself. Just make sure to add some highway pegs to your bike first. And that is the end of Nevada and the start of Utah and the end of the loneliest highway in America.
So one of the annoyances I have with living where I do in the West Coast is that I'm limited as to where I can go, right? Because, you know, I'm so jealous of you people living in Europe. I really want to move back to Europe because, you know, Europe, I used to live in Munich, Germany, and I remember I could travel all around Europe just like that. It was so nice. Living on the West Coast here, I have three options. I can go north, which is full of moose and mosquitoes. I can go east, which as soon as you cross over the Rockies is flat as a pancake and there's nothing interesting to see or do. And that may not be true, but it's pretty flat. Or I could go south. Now, I already went south. I've already been south many times, right? So you're kind of limited. I can't go west because that's ocean, right? So I can only go south. So when I was trying to think about where I could go, I wanted to go somewhere that was visually different than what I see around this area that I ride, the Pacific Northwest. This area is green, forestry, mountains. I wanted to go somewhere visually different. So that's why I was looking on the map and I was like, hey, Moab would be fun because Moab looks totally different than the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest looks like, you know, lush green forest. Moab looks like the surface of Mars. It's all red and rock and all that. So I'm like, yeah, that'd be great to go there. So that's what, you know, drew me to Moab was like, I think that'd be so fascinating just to see that area. And let me tell you something, like, I don't think I really conveyed this well in the video because it's hard to capture the grandness and the scale of landscape, I think on GoPros and, you know, small cameras like this. It's really hard to kind of capture that. But when I'm riding, I mean, my head was on a swivel the whole time coming into Moab because just literally the whole area is so different than what I'm used to. It looks like, you know, something out of like the dinosaur age. Like honestly, if I saw a dinosaur just kind of wander across the highway, I wouldn't even bat an eye because it just looks like, it really does look like a movie set almost, like it's like Tatooine or something, like some alien space, like just the geological formations, these giant kind of rock areas with all the different layers in them. Everything's all red and rocky and all that. There's no green, and it's just, I was really shocked at how just alien-like Moab looked. I don't think I covered that very well in the video because it was hard to do. But if you've never been there and you want to kind of, you know, be wowed by kind of the geology of the place, I highly recommend going to Moab because, man, it just looks like totally different than what I expected.
Moab. Millions of years of flooding and desertification has created a land before time, where the fingerprints of Jurassic giants are still visible in the earth. Vast open landscapes filled with towering natural arches, smooth red-walled canyons, and slick sand rock has created a paradise for off-road enthusiasts.
So if you watch the Moab section, you know what happened.
Oh shit! Oh fuck! Shit.
You know, I won't cover it again here, but let me just say that if you're going to motorcycle in Moab, have some off-road experience beforehand, and specifically have off-road experience in bumpy terrain, like perhaps single track over some rocks and roots and things like that. I don't have any real motorcycle off-road experience. I have quite a bit of mountain bike off-road experience, and I relied on that experience when I was riding in Moab, but I don't have any motorcycle off-road experience. I'm not sure exactly how to kind of like move your weight around. How do you lift the front tire over a bump or something like that, like on a motorcycle? I didn't really kind of get how to do that. And so I was really shocked at how bumpy the slick rock trail was in Moab and how difficult it was. I watched a ton of videos on that, and you know, like I said in my film, I was like, I thought it was just smooth. I thought it was slick rock, smooth, right? So I thought it would just be like wee, like this, you know. But man, it was bumpy going over that, you know, that devil's whatever that big rock in the beginning of that trail was just, it was just so. I was on edge the whole time because it was sandy, it was bumpy, I didn't have any experience in that environment at all. The bike that I was riding wasn't really set up properly, and so I was struggling with the bike. So, and once again, I had all these ideas for like Moab. I was like, yeah, I can get the drone, I can spin the drone around me, get all this stuff, and like the drone, once again, sucks. Once again, like look at this shot here. Like this shot is like so annoying because like there's this epic wall cliff beside me. I wanted to capture that. The drone like zooms right in, so you can't even really see any of it. So frustrating. So I didn't really get to film like Moab as much as I would have liked, and then I didn't get like I didn't get to capture the epicness of it. I thought it would be really cool, really fun, totally different than when I was riding before. I thought I could kind of make that kind of almost like an action movie. Like that was my idea for the edit, to try to make it feel kind of like an action type of movie where I was like, you know, riding around in this kind of different environment. I don't think I did that at all. I'm just like putting around, trying not to fall over, and I just think that it kind of ended up being kind of crappy. But at least now I know, like, hey, some of these areas that look really epic in YouTube videos or whatnot, they look epic because the rider's experience is pretty high, and my experience is not there yet. So kind of a lesson learned in that one. Look at that. I mean, it's such a cliche, but that rock is pretty dang slick looking. Hence the name Slick Rock, but still, look how smooth it is. That is way bumpier than I thought it would be. Boy, when you watch a video on YouTube, it doesn't look bumpy at all. Jeez, that was scary. So from Moab, I rode south to Colorado. My plan was to ride from Colorado from south to north and ride like the famous $1 Million Highway. If you research that area, that Uray area, you know, you see a lot of there's a lot of mountain passes in that area. And you watch some of these videos on YouTube and it just looks epic, right? And I really wanted to go try that. But once again, I was kind of unsure what the skill level required to do that was. It's hard to kind of know because like you read reports on, you know, watch videos on YouTube or you read reports and some people are like, yeah, I took like a BMW 1250 GS up there, no problem. And other ones are like, yeah, I was on like a little lightweight dual sport and it really scared the hell out of me. And what people never say is like their skill level. So you're thinking like, well, if he took a GSA, it should be fine. But what you don't realize is that guy could be like, you know, a Dakar level rider. And for him, it's no problem. So I was unsure whether I was going to try to attempt some of the passes or not. I really wanted to because the scenery just looks epic. But I wasn't sure if I would be able to do it on my bike or not. Luckily, the weather made that decision for me because when I got in there, it was basically pouring rain the whole time I was in that area. And so I wasn't going to risk going up there in the rain. So I just like sat and did laundry. I contacted a gentleman who runs the website motorcyclecolorado.com. And he has documented all these great motorcycling roads around Colorado. So I told him, hey, you know, I'm riding south to north. Do you have a route that you might be able to recommend that's a combination of road and off-road? And he's the one who put this route together for me. And I'm so grateful because this route turned out to be fantastic. So it was a bit of road, the $1 Million Highway up until Uray. And then from Uray, he put this kind of off-road gravel road together for me. And let me tell you something, like Colorado's got some of the smoothest gravel roads I've ever experienced in my life. Like they're just so smooth, so nice. I was like, this is great. So I'm following this, like his suggestions and going up into the mountains on this gravel road, enjoying the scenery. And as I made my way towards McClure Pass, that's when it started to get darker and it started to rain. And this is where I had some problems with the bike. So it started to rain. It was getting dark and I started having problems with my shifter. I couldn't get it to go up into, third and fourth gear. Luckily for me, it got stuck in I think it got stuck in second gear, kind of at the top of McClure Pass.
What fucking gear? Oh shit, is my gearbox stuck again? Oh shit. I don't think it's changing up. Shit. Uh-oh. Look at that valley, look at that view. Wow. Okay, now I gotta figure out why. Oh shit, my gearbox is stuck. It won't go up. Shit, it'll go down, but it won't go up. Well, good news is I'm stuck in neutral and we're all downhill, so I'll figure it out when I get to the bottom.
Luckily, there was no cars behind me because I just ended up coasting all the way down until I got to the bottom of McClure Pass, and I ended up in the town of Carbondale. And when I was in Carbondale, I seriously considered kind of abandoning the rest of the day, just jumping on the highway and getting to my next destination. My next destination was Leadville. So I was like, well, it's raining. I was supposed to go over the Independent Pass, and I was like, well, it's raining. I was having a problem with the shifter. I was just gonna bail and head on the highway. As I was getting my bike ready, some other guy, came up to me and started chatting to me about bikes, and he asked me where I'm going, and I told him kind of what my thoughts were. He said, it's probably clear over there. He said, in Colorado, it can be raining over there, it'd be sunny over there. So he said, it's probably clear over there. But he said, I highly recommend Independence Pass because it's really great on a motorcycle. So I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. Even if it's raining, I don't mind riding in the rain. Even if it's raining, it'd be kind of nice to experience that. Better than a highway. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. And boy, am I ever glad I did, because Independence Pass was absolutely fantastic. Now you can see it's a little bit blown out here. Like why is this so light? And the reason why it's so light is because on my GoPro, I have this thing, which is an ND filter. And this thing here, it's like sunglasses for the camera. And I won't get too much in the technical details now, but what this allows you to do is have a slightly slower shutter speed, so you get a bit more of motion blur when you're riding. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google ND filter motion blur and I'll kind of explain it to you. But this works great when it's sunny out, because to get a slower shutter speed, you're letting in more light. So when it's sunny out, you got to somehow block that light. So this is an ND filter. It's like sunglasses for the camera, and it just kind of blocks the light. Perfect for sunny days. You get nice motion blur. When it's dark out, like earlier when it was raining and it got kind of dark and cloudy, this can obviously make the footage too dark because it's blocking the light. So when I was coming up over the McClure Pass, I actually switched this out for my polarizing filter, just like the regular clear lens, and because I knew it was too dark. So I head up towards the Independence Pass, and the gentleman was right. It totally cleared up over there. The weather was fantastic.
Okay, so here's the deal. Over there, rain and cloud. Over there, sunny and clear. So obviously I'm heading that way.
But me, I forgot to switch from my clear filter back to this thing, but I had the settings on my camera the same, the 1/48 shutter speed, which means that it's letting in a lot of light. And that's why you see in these shots, it's all blown out, and you can't fix that. That's just gone. So I was really disappointed. Once again, I don't check this stuff until I got home, because I was like, man, this pass is epic. This is so much fun. And I got home, I'm like, crap, it's all blown out. This is not going to look good. So that's why I didn't include it in my film. But I will say that if you're in Colorado, I highly recommend riding the Independence Pass, because it was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. The scenery as you get to the top is amazing.
Look at where I am, way up above the tree line. Look at this! Ha! Cool! That's awesome! I didn't know I'd experience this up here. I didn't know we climb up. I can't even speak English. I didn't know we climbed this high.
The road itself is super fun, nice and twisty and all that. There's a bit of traffic here and there, but easy to get around. But as you kind of come up on the mountain, it clears out. You're above the tree line, it clears out. You got a great view of the top. Definitely worth it. So I was really grateful that I actually went and did Independence Pass. I was just disappointed that I screwed up on the camera and I wasn't able to film it and record it and show it on the final film. So, but, and then from Leadville, I was making my way to Utah. And so from Leadville to Utah, I stopped in at, what's it called? The Dinosaur National Monument. And once again, I didn't include this in the I didn't include this in the final video because I just thought it was getting a little too long. But if you're into dinosaurs, paleontology, I mean, I highly recommend checking out the Dinosaur National Museum because this building is really interesting. I don't know when, I guess a long time ago, they found this cliff full of dinosaur bones. Full. And what they said happened was this used to be part of a river, and a bunch of dinosaurs, you know, died or got stuck in the river, and all the bones got washed down this one area. So that's why they're kind of all concentrated in this area. So instead of excavating all the bones and removing them, what they did is they built this building around that wall. So the building covers the wall. So it's really, I think my camera's, I think my microphone is falling down. Oh, yeah. I got to cut. Okay, I think that's fixed now. So, yeah. But if you're into paleontology, it's great because you can see this wall of dinosaur bones. And I mean, I don't know, I just think it's really cool to think like this thing lived like hundreds of millions of years ago and we can see remnants of it now. Like just imagining what the world was like when this dinosaur was, you know, booting around. I think it's really interesting. And they actually had an interesting stat there. They said that, what did they say? I don't remember the exact numbers, but they said like 90% of the dinosaurs that have ever existed, we don't know about them because the only bones that they tend to find are from large dinosaurs. You know, it makes sense. Small dinosaur, maybe the size of a chicken or something like that. If the bones kind of, you know, when it dies, the bones decay. You may not find that because it's pretty small. But if you got like a huge ass dinosaur with bones the size of like a city bus or something, it's easier to find, right? So they say that most of the dinosaurs that they find are from large dinosaurs. So there could be all kinds of dinosaurs, some smaller ones that we don't even know about yet. Is this thing staying? So if you're into dinosaurs or paleontology and you're in that area, I highly recommend checking out what's this thing called Dinosaur National Monument. It's a whole area. You can access it apparently from, I think, from Utah and Colorado. And there's like camping, there's hiking in that area. What was this overlook? The Sheep Creek Overlook. The Sheep Creek Overlook was amazing. Like it doesn't show well on camera, but just like, it's just all these layers. You can just imagine like each one's like millions of years old and what was going on the earth at the time. I totally find that fascinating, you know, that to try to think about what was happening at that time. So, yeah, I highly recommend visiting the Dinosaur National Monument if you're going through that area. There's the sun. Look at that. Oh my God. I got to stop and take a look at that. Oh my God. Look how green everything is here. You can see it's starting to change to yellow. Oh, so cold. Can you guess what the least populated state in America is? I bet most Americans probably don't even know. I wonder how many Americans can actually name all 50 states. I wonder. I mean, I can't, but I wonder how many Americans actually could. But can you guess which one is the least populated state in America? I thought it was Alaska. I thought probably Alaska, Hawaii, something like that, you know. I was totally wrong. It's actually Wyoming. Wyoming has got the least amount of people of any state in America. And it's the 10th largest in land size. Yeah, that's great. For someone who likes to ride alone, Wyoming is perfect, right? So when I read that stat, I was like, hey, this might be the perfect place for me to go ride through. And I mean, let me tell you, I loved my trip through Wyoming. It wasn't, you know, like super twisty or anything like that. Like it wasn't that kind of place, but I just loved the scenery, the geography, the remoteness of it. That was all fantastic. And I also really liked, I didn't manage to capture this on film as much, but I really liked how friendly all the people were that I met in Wyoming. I remember at one point I was riding in the morning and I was so cold. I was freezing cold that morning. and I was going down the highway. You know, on your bike when you're like, you got your heated grips, but your thumbs get really cold, so then you put your thumbs like in your like this to try to warm them up. Like I was riding like that with just my hands like trying to grip my grips like that. It was so cold. It was freezing cold. And so I just thought I had to stop and pull over and like try to get something warm to drink.
I actually don't drink coffee, so I have no idea what this stuff is. What's a cappuccino? I don't know what that is. Is that like, I guess it's hot. What's this thing? Is this coffee? What is that? I think is this coffee? Okay, that's coffee. I don't think I've ever drunk coffee in my life. Ooh, it smells horrible. Do people put sugar? Why do always people say milk and sugar and coffee? Okay, that looks like I know what I'm doing. Well, I think you're supposed to stir it with a stick, right? Oh, they have tea right here. Ah, damn it, I should have bought some tea. Hi there, want coffee, please?
Is that it?
It's just coffee, yeah.
Have a good day.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, God. Oh, that's nice of him.
And I mean, like, yeah, like I said, I don't know anything about coffee. I don't know. I just wanted like a warm tea or something like that. But like the store owner just gave that coffee for free. I met this other family who were going hiking or camping with their kid and all that. And just like, I was really surprised at how friendly the just random people that I met in Wyoming were. I didn't film all that because I don't want to like film every interaction with everybody. I don't, like, if people don't want to be in video, I don't want to invade their personal space with that. But I kind of wish I could have put that on in the film, because everyone I met in Wyoming was really friendly, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Maybe because it's so remote, they don't see people very often. So when they see someone, they're like, "Oh, there's another person. Hey, how you going?" You know, and then we'll see you in another 3 weeks or something like that. But it's like, you know, Wyoming, like, it's kind of, I guess the whole state is kind of like a small town. There's just literally a bunch of small towns everywhere. And I mean, the people were super friendly. I really enjoyed that. If you're riding through Wyoming, I highly recommend stopping in Atlantic City and staying at, what's it called, the Miner's Delight Inn. They have a bunch of like really cozy cabins available and a fantastic breakfast in the morning. Interestingly, I talked to the owner a little bit of the Miner's Delight Inn, and he told me that ever since the Wyoming BDR opened up, they've seen a huge increase in motorcyclists coming through there, which they never had, you know, that many before. So it's really great to see that the BDR is bringing some economic, you know, benefits to some of these areas along the route there. So if you're in Wyoming, stop at the Miner's Delight. You'll have a fantastic breakfast. You're staying in this old rustic cabin. It's really great. The roads around there are like nice gravel roads and smooth, and you just literally feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty windy. Keep that in mind. It's pretty windy, but I just really enjoyed finally getting this feeling of being like just in the remoteness of America.
Soon enough, it was time to get off the pavement and hit the dirt. Due to how sparse Wyoming is, they have this huge network of dirt roads that crisscross the state with these really interesting roadside information plaques.
So from Atlantic City, I kept going north, and I really enjoy stopping in these like small American towns along the way and just seeing kind of what life was like, what life's like there now, what life was like. I like, because these towns always kind of show a lot about what life was like in, you know, in the frontier days. Like they were either mining towns or cowboy towns or whatever. And it's just absolutely fascinating to me to see like all the old guns on display and old saddles and whatnot. And like this guy here, like I thought this was kind of funny. Like every time I think I could be a cowboy, I think of this guy here. This is Joe Morgan. He's the first sheriff of Yampa Valley. And I mean, there's no way I could be a cowboy because these people had a tough life. Like, look at this. This is Joe Morgan when he arrived there, looking, you know, fresh and young. He's got that wicked cowboy bushy beard happening. And this is Joe Rogan later on. He's actually only 37 here. Can you believe that? No, I'm just kidding. But look at that. Him and his wife, they look like they've got some city miles on them, don't they? So I think the frontier life would be a tough life. But I don't know, just something kind of romantic about the old days of living like that, without all this electronics, without all this social media, without all this crap that we have to deal with now. It's kind of an idealistic time for me. So I really enjoy stopping in these small towns along the way and kind of seeing this stuff and whatnot. So from Atlantic City, I kept making my way north through the Teton and the Yellowstone National Park. And like I said in the video, these two parks are not that impressive for me. I'm sure these parks are great. If you spend more time there, I'm sure it's great. And there's obviously I saw a lot of traffic there, a lot of people hiking and camping and all that there. I'm sure it's fantastic. It's just for me, it was $30 to ride through each park, which is kind of a lot, you know, and I could ride 10 minutes from my house and see the exact same thing. It's just trees in the forest. I can see that here. If you come from Moab and you've never seen a tree before, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell is that thing growing out of the ground? You know, yeah, go to Yellowstone National Park. You'll love it there. But for me, I can literally see the same thing like 10 minutes from my house. So to spend $60 just to ride through and not really see much, you know, was a little bit shocking. Like I said, I realized that if I spent more time around that area, I'm sure it would have been, you know, epic and whatnot. But I was kind of, once again, I'm in a hurry. So I just was trying to get to Cody, Wyoming as quickly as I can. So I get through there, I get to Cody, Wyoming, and I visit the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. And, you know, if you are into history and the Wild West and cowboys and all that like I am, you visit the Buffalo Bill Center of the Wild West. This place was fantastic. And what I really liked about this place was the fact that it didn't just have just one museum. It wasn't just a museum like the Buffalo Bill Museum. There's actually 5 museums all under one roof. So there's the Western Art Museum, Plains Indian Museum, the Buffalo Bill Museum, the Firearms Museum, and the Natural History Museum. So it's like 5 museums under one roof. And actually the Western Art Museum was really interesting. I'm not big into art and whatnot. You know, I'm like, oh, it's a painting. But actually I really liked the artwork that they had at the Western Art Museum there. It was really, really good. So if you're in that area, like if you're going to Yellowstone, stop in Cody and then check out this museum, because if you're into that history or whatnot, it's really, really great. If you're into like firearms, good Lord. I've never seen such a large gun collection in my entire life. They've got drawers upon drawers of guns. I think it actually might be one of the largest gun collections in the United States or maybe in the world. I don't know, some of you guys in Texas or whatever probably got a personal collection that might give them a run for their money or whatnot, but this place is really amazing. Like, you could just literally open these drawers and they've just got stacks of guns. They have like drawers that are like vertical, like kind of blinds you open. They got like stats of guns. Now, I know some of you hippies are like, well, you know, don't talk about guns or whatever. But the thing is, I am fascinated with the mechanicals of the guns. I'm fascinated with anything mechanical. So to me, I'm interested in like the history of the firearm, how it's made, and how they manufactured it. That's what's really interesting to me. So it was fascinating to see, like, you know, kind of the progression of how guns were made, like in the 1800s and the cowboy era and all that. And so that was really fun. And so, of course, I cannot leave the United States without shooting a gun. So I visited the Cody Firearms Experience. My instructor at the Cody Firearms Museum, Matt, was fantastic. I mean, super knowledgeable about the guns that he was, you know, demonstrating for me. Extremely safety conscious. I think if you've never shot a gun before, but you want to try it, a place like this is probably your best option to go try a gun. Don't go to like Uncle Bill's place and go in the backyard and like, you know, shoot some cans or whatever. That's fine, but can be a bit risky. And if you accidentally shot your neighbor's dog or something, that's when the media goes bananas and, you know, the shit hits the fan, so to speak. So go to a place like this where it's all indoors. They're super safe with the gun handling and all that, and you can really enjoy yourself in a nice, safe environment. Do I look like Clint Eastwood yet?
I mean, I think you're about a foot shorter.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, once you're on target.
So that was a lot of fun. It was fun to be able to shoot these guns that I'd only ever read about. I mean, I live up in Canada. We got the super hippie government that's trying to take all gun ownership away from everybody because don't worry, the government will protect you. Yeah, good luck with that. So we'll never be able to shoot anything like that in Canada. So it was great to be able to go down to the States that still allow their citizens to have these kind of opportunities, and I think it's fantastic. I love my time in Wyoming. I love the remoteness of it, the super friendly people. To be able to exercise my right to shoot these kind of guns, it was absolutely great. If you're going through Wyoming, I highly recommend visiting some of these areas that I've mentioned in this video.
As I rode out of Cody and into the mountains, I reflected on how much I enjoyed my time in Wyoming. The vast open spaces, friendly people, and historical ties to the founding of America all gave Wyoming that distinctive feel of the fabled land of the free.
So from Wyoming, basically from Cody, Wyoming, that's kind of the start of the end of my trip. I'm heading home. I briefly popped into Montana to go on a cowboy, like a horseback riding ride. And once again, it's just like consistent with things not going right in this video. This company that I contacted originally were supposed to take me up on a mountain horseback ride. I actually booked 2 days because I booked two days because I thought, well, if one day the weather's bad, hopefully I got a backup. So they were supposed to take me up into the mountains on both days. And I thought, yeah, it'd be great. Like, here I am, finally get to live my cowboy dreams. You know, I was going to like buy a cowboy hat and like go up into the mountains and all that. And then I get there and then like, they're like, oh, well, we're not going up into the mountains because our trailer is broken and we can't get up there. So we're just going to do like a local trail ride. They told me this after I paid them. So I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So 2 days, I'm like sitting on this horse doing this trail ride. They wouldn't let me wear a cowboy hat. They would make me wear this stupid helmet. And I'm like, I put the reins down and I'm like filming with my 360 camera. This horse knows where to go. So I literally didn't do anything. I just literally sat on this horse and the horse did a route that's probably done like 100 times before. So once again, like that was really disappointing because I paid for 2 days. I did the exact same route both days. And I was hoping that we were going to go up into the mountains and see some of the great scenery in Montana. This is another thing that I haven't been able to do. On my Canadian road trip, I tried to book some horseback riding trips when I rode through Alberta, and it was an absolute disaster. One, so many places didn't even email me back. I guess these cowboys don't understand how email works or something like that, because they have a website. You email them, they don't get back to you. I don't know how that works, but it's been really difficult to try to find a good trail ride. So if you own a farm or you own like a trail riding company or whatever, man, I'd be happy to talk to you because I've always wanted to go. I'm still looking for like the ultimate trail ride where we go up in the mountains and we cook on that cast iron stove, you know, and make s'mores and all that kind of stuff. I want that experience. I just haven't been able to find it. So yeah, horseback riding in Montana was really disappointing. And then at that point, it was just a straight shot, head home. But I had one last road to ride, and that was Lolo Pass.
Lolo Pass turned out to be one of my favorite roads on this trip. Gorgeous scenery, a fun twisty road, helpful road signs, and hardly any traffic was a fantastic way to close out my American road trip.
I love the signage here in Idaho. So descriptive. You know, it tells you exactly what you're gonna see here. Check out this sign. Check out this sign. This sign is hilarious. What is this? Some kind of river or some kind of forest or something? Nope. It's wilderness. That's awesome. Yeah, that's called wilderness. Got it. Thanks, Idaho.
And Lolo Pass, as you can see in the video, it's great. It's actually even better than it looks in the video. It's like the river that it follows, that scenery there is fantastic, and it's long. I think it's like over 100 miles, maybe even a couple 100 miles, some of that. It's really long. The scenery is fantastic, great for motorcycling, and so I was super excited to capture that all for you. I got my 360 camera out, I attached it to my motorcycle, and I turned it off. Yep, I made the exact same mistake in Lolo Pass as I did in the Alberta Desert with this camera again. I was so frustrated when I got home and I realized that because Lolo Pass was epic. I was doing this mountain twisty road. I was like, oh, this is gonna look so great. And I get back to look at the footage. I'm like, oh, I turned it off. So I've actually corrected that now, and I've turned the light on this thing so that when it's recording now, I know it's recording because this is gonna show red. So I can like glance back and look at it and know that it's red. And the reason why I turned that on, because obviously I'm an idiot. I can't tell if this camera is on or off, but I will say that the battery on this 360 camera lasts quite a long time. It's really good. It can easily last all day, and I film a lot with this camera. And I got 3 of these batteries, so I have more than enough batteries. So I've turned the light on now, so hopefully I won't make that mistake again. But yeah, Lolo Pass, if you get a chance to ride Lolo Pass, I highly, highly recommend it because it's absolutely fantastic. So even though this trip didn't turn out as well as I would have liked, there was a lot of frustration in terms of like the planning, the distances, things that I booked didn't kind of come to fruition and all that. One of the biggest frustrations that I had on this trip was the donkey. The donkey is just too slow for this type of trip. If you're thinking about buying the CB500X and you're gonna do this type of touring where you're on highways where all the other cars around you are doing like 110, 120, 130 kilometers an hour, seriously reconsider, because this bike is just too slow for that kind of speed. Now, I know a lot of CB500X owners, if you read the forums and the Facebook groups, they're going to say, no, this bike is crazy fast. And they always spat out this one number, it's 130. You're going to look at it and you're going to see a lot of them say, no, my bike can do 130 all day, no problem. I rode all day, 130, no problem. So you kind of think like, well, maybe 130 is pretty quick, maybe it's not so bad. What they're not telling you is that at 130, that bike is pretty maxed out. You're probably close to redline at that point, especially if you got gear on your bike or you're a big, heavier person or whatever, you're pretty close to redline at that point. Do you really want to ride your motorcycle for hours on end with the engine that close to redline? Like literally you're at about 1,000, maybe 1,500 RPM away from redline. That's pretty stressful on the motor. Not only that, but you have absolutely no room to pass, right? You got no RPM left to pass anybody. If you want to pass someone on that bike, what you have to do is you have to use a lot of momentum. You got to start way back here and try to use momentum and try to go past someone. You can't come up behind them like this, take a peek, give it the beans, go around them like that. If the bike just doesn't have enough power, especially at highway speeds. At highway speeds, a lot of these American big trucks, they can do 120, towing a trailer, no problem. And the problem with the Honda is if you're stuck behind that, you're getting hammered around by the buffeting a lot. It's not very comfortable to be back there. So you want to get by this person. But the problem is at 120, you don't have enough oomph to get up to say 140 or 150 to try to pass. You're going to top out at like 130 if you don't have any cases on the bike, if the bike is pretty light. You might be able to get to 140, 150 if it's really light, but you're really pushing the bike at that point. So I found this bike extremely frustrating, and actually in the middle of my trip, I was like, I just out of curiosity, I'm going to go look on Facebook Marketplace to see what's available, and I saw this Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro for sale. And I messaged the guy right away and I said, hey, I'm on a road trip right now. I will come buy that bike the second I get back. Don't sell it. Here's a deposit. Hang on to it for me. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as I saw that bike there, I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy it. And I actually listed my bike at the same time. I said, I'm on a road trip right now. I'm going to be back in like 2 weeks. This bike is for sale the second I get back. And that's exactly what I did. The day after I got back, I bought the Triumph. And then about a week later, I sold the Donkey. And let me tell you something. The Triumph is better than the Donkey in every single possible way. I'm going to do a separate video on that because I've actually gone on a road trip with the Triumph. So I'll do a comparison of the two. It's not really a fair comparison because they're obviously quite different bikes, but just for anyone who might be thinking about upgrading to a little bit of a bigger bike, I'll give you some of my thoughts on that. But let me tell you something, like if I could do this trip over again on the Triumph Tiger, I would absolutely do it because that bike is just fantastic. The Donkey made this trip frustrating at times just because I was just constantly fighting on the traffic to try to find some space for myself or get around someone or cover long distances or whatever. That bike is just not designed for highway touring at all.
A fucking Prius. A Toyota Prius is able to pass the Donkey. How embarrassing.
So that was the route I took around Western United States. I think it's a great route. I think if someone never been to the States before and you kind of want to get a feel of the United States, I think that would be a great route. If you're thinking about doing it, you have any questions or whatever, heck, if some of you want me to take you on that route, call me. I'm happy to guide like a group of people on that route because I think it's a great route. We're just not going to do it on donkeys. We're going to do it on tigers, but it really is a fun route. It really gives you a good sense of like the difference in geography of America. Like all these states are kind of close together, but geographically they're so different, and you get like a good insight into like the history of America and all that. Got some nice fun twisty roads sprinkled throughout. I think it's a lot of fun. So if you're gonna do that route, you want my help, just let me know. But really the big question now is, where do I go next? You know, I can't go west because it's ocean. I can't go north because it's full of mosquitoes. I can't go east because it's flat as a pancake. I've already gone south. So my only option is to go more south.